Become a Leslie's Pro member, and with almost 1,000 locations conveniently located less than 3 miles from your service route, you can quickly get in and out and take care of your customers. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software platform. Listeners of the podcast can try Skimmer for free. Visit my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, and click on the Leslie's Pro and the Skimmer banners to learn more.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, welcome to the Best of the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to continue my conversation with Joe Laurano of Periodic Products. We're going to discuss some stain removal tips for you. And we're going to also explain some things about the fill water and how metals can enter your pool through the pool's fill water. Pool Service Pro, open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. You know, when you talk to service techs about metal stain removal, a lot of them will just kind of brush it off. They'll not implement it as part of their service, and they won't offer it to customers. They'll just say things like, well, that's on your pool. And when I took over, I noted this stain on your pool in my initial estimate or bid of your pool. So I want to let you know that I didn't cause that stain. It was already existing. But nowhere do they think about removing that stain for the customer. And why do you think that kind of attitude has developed in the industry over time?
Well, because as I said, 95% of the cases are easy, or 99% of the cases are easy, right? Because it's usually a very straightforward metal staining issue. But you can get into a situation of like the bacteria, that could cause you a bit of a headache. You may have a surface that was not applied appropriately or is old. And then you have to worry about, is it, hydration? Do I have some issues with, too much water in the mix? So you get into the whole surface issues. And so it tends to make the service person who kind of wants to get in and out pretty quickly, a little bit of hesitancy to actually dive into the problem. But I would say that and recommend that they do dive into the problem, because there could be things like, pool heaters that need to be put in the pool, basically replaced. There could be other things, water conditioner systems and other types of things that they can do to actually improve what the pool owner sees and overall satisfaction of the pool owner. If you have a happy pool owner who's got a pool that doesn't require a lot of their own maintenance, and they can invite their friends over and they like what they see, you're going to have that client for a long time, and they're going to tell their friends. So to build your business, you really want to have satisfied customers. And the one way to do it is to, even though you did inherit that pool with a stain, if you can take that stain off and keep it off, that's going to be a very, very positive experience for your customer and then for you.
Yeah, so it wouldn't hurt, I don't think, if you have a pool service company, and you're getting a new account and you see staining there. Would it be logical to tell the customer that you can try the stain removal process that we talked about in the first podcast and see if that works, and go from there? Some of the fears of the pool service tech is that they're going to do the process and it's not going to do anything to the pool, and then the customer is going to turn around and say they wasted the resources by paying for that kind of removal service. So how do you allay some of those fears that the process may not work as the customer had wanted it to look once they're done with the removal process?
Right. Well, I would do three things. First of all, I would become educated on the process, similar to what they're doing with your podcast, but go to some of the seminars when they get back on. Some of them are virtual. Hopefully later on this year, we'll be back to doing education in person, but learn about the topic, right? So you can become knowledgeable about it, and you're not afraid to deal with those issues. The second is to set expectations, reasonable expectations. if you're looking at a surface that's to the end of its lifetime or nearing the end of its lifetime, so if you have a 10-year surface and you're at year 9, right, and your customer says, I want to have a nice clean surface like I did when I put the pool in, you need to set their expectations and say, you probably got a lot of stuff going on here, and you only have another year left of the surface before you really have to entertain draining the pool and resurfacing the pool, or putting in a new liner of that pool. You're not going to be able to turn back the clock on a pool surface. So be very, very realistic with the customer, regarding those expectations, and then to use the resources available. We have a customer service line that's open during the normal working hours, 9 to 5 Eastern time, and we do allow people to send in their water. We test their water using very, very sophisticated methodologies that are EPA methodologies that help them. We can use some of our expertise to help them. We have them send pictures in. Some of those pictures you will see on the website. Those actually came from people that we've helped. So use the resources to help you out. You're not out there alone. So if you do those 3 things, I think you'll be all right. I don't think you'll have any issues.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think you summed it up well there. Getting educated on what metal staining is and how to treat it is, I guess, one of the keys for feeling comfortable in treating it. And I think, let's say that you have a customer, you took over their pool, or maybe you're doing the pool yourself, and you notice there's some metal staining developing. What could be some of the, I guess, hazards, or not hazards, that's probably not the right word. What are some of the things that could happen by ignoring that? Let's say you just don't want to address it and you just let it go. What are some of the things that could happen to that pool if you're not addressing the metal staining that's developing?
Well, like I said early on, you really want to identify the source of the metal staining, because it'll just keep coming back. So even if you take it off and you get to see you later to capture all the metals and you throw it away, well, if you're still pumping metals in that pool, that stain's going to come back. When the levels get above about 0.3 ppm, they're going to start to stain. Right? So you owe it to your customer, even though it's a new pool that you may have taken over. You kind of owe it to your customer to do a little bit of investigative work. And there's really 2 recommendations I would make and kind of highlight here, because a lot of times people change service companies when they resurface their pool or they do some renovations to their pool. So you want to make sure that you're not being handed a problem. And oftentimes what happens is that when they resurface a pool, they'll often resurface the deck. And you have to make sure that the bonding grid that is in that pool, or that was in that pool, still is in that pool. Because if there's a bonding issue in that pool, you'll actually set up a battery, galvanic corrosion we call it, and it actually start to plate metals out. You'll dissolve metals in your heater core, you'll dissolve metals in your plumbing system, in your rings of your lights fixtures. So you really want to make sure that you're not being handed a problem. So you want to get some really good history there. And if you think the bonding grid's been somehow compromised, you want to have it checked and make sure that the bonding grid is still good. A lot of times people will convert to salt pools when they do this, and of course, as you know, salt water conducts electricity, and it makes the situation worse, right, with this bonding issue. And you want to make sure that if it's a fiberglass pool, that you have ladders in the pool, some metal in contact with that pool water, because again, that's a bonding issue. So you want to check that, and I want to emphasize that, because we see that a lot with the renovations and with new service companies that come in and take over a pool. The second thing is and I tell this to whenever I go on site and help one of the pool service professionals, and they're going to start putting chemicals in the pool, and they don't really know what's in that water. I tell them to take a 5-gallon bucket and take the water out of the pool and put a little bit of what they're going to add in the pool to the bucket. If that water turns black, don't add that chemical to the pool water, because that's going to make your customer very dissatisfied when their crystal clear pool suddenly turns black, right? And this actually has happened a couple of times. And I tell customers, or tell the professionals to take some of the water out, dose a little bit of that chemical in that pail. If that water in the pail stays good, then you're pretty much guaranteed that when you pour it into the rest of the pool, that everything else will still be good. So it's kind of got little, tricks of the trade, as I call them, to help out the taking over a new pool that they may not know the history of is probably one of the more riskier things that they do.
I think you're right there in that case, especially when someone's remodeling, like you said. The bonding issue that you mentioned, how would they correct that? Is that something that the construction side of the industry would take care of?
Well, ideally, they're not going to take the bonding grid away, or if they do, because it's buried under the cement decking, and when they put in maybe their tile decking, they should put the bonding grid back. Some people want to handle it by using a zinc metal, which is basically a sacrificial anode. If you own a boat or have owned a boat, you call them zincs in the boat, or those, they basically sacrifice, they basically dissolve in the water preferentially to any other metal that's there. But what they've done a couple of things now. One is that there's a company out there that sells a skimmer unit that actually has the metal grid on it that allows you to connect that to the bonding grid to bond the pool. And other people do inline bonding units, so you can actually restore the bonding nature to the water back to the situation that's there. You want to be careful, though. You want to make sure that you hire a professional to do this, because people confuse the bonding grid with the grounding, and they're two completely different things. And you really need to make sure, for the safety of the bather, that you've done this correctly. So if you think that it's been in fact compromised, you want to bring somebody in who's an expert to actually test it and to make recommendations to what they would do to remedy the problem. But it's something that should definitely be addressed.
Let's talk a little bit about the pool fill water. So I get this a lot when guys are doing startups, and it's really lucrative in the industry to do startups because there's you can land the account 90% of the time. You're going to land that account, and so one of the things they're hesitant about taking startups are the problems that may develop or come about during the startup process. And one of the issues that I think a lot of people don't really address or talk about much, there's a few experts in the industry that do focus on this, and that's the fill water. And I think it's an important aspect of any startup or any refill of a pool is testing that fill water to find out what's in there. And See You Later has really come up with some pre-filters. And before we jump into your product, there are some pre-filters on the market already, and maybe you can compare yours to theirs and kind of let the listeners know why yours are, priced the way they are, the price point versus someone who's selling one on the internet that makes a pre-fill filter. So let's talk about the fill water first, and we'll touch on that also. So the fill water, what kind of issues can happen when you're filling a brand new startup pool?
Okay, so basically, you really want to test your water for a couple things. One would be the inorganics, and the second are the organics. So the same thing that we've been talking about throughout here. So you want to test for metals. You want to make sure that that you don't have a lot of metals in that water, especially if it's a well. Now remember, if it's coming from a city source, then they've actually treated it with any kind of oxidizing agent. Chlorine is the typical one that's used, or some kind of chlorine derivative. They pretty much have oxidized the metals, so it's now basically particulate in nature, right? So it's that iron solid material that's very, very finely divided that's getting to your tap. If it's coming out of your well, you're getting some of that, but you're probably getting some of the dissolved form also. So if you really want to make sure that you capture both the solid particulates that are there and also any kind of dissolved material, especially metals. So most of the materials on the market that you're going to filter are basically size filters. So they're going to be typically very similar to what you have in a cartridge filter. It's going to be something that is going to have a certain pore size to it. It's going to capture those solid materials that are not dissolved, that are above a certain size, and let smaller particles that are suspended along with dissolved particles pass right through. So those are going to be limited in their scope. There are some products out there that actually try to convert the metals to a solid form so that they could then be captured. The problem there has been the speed with which it's being done. Typically, you have to throttle the flow way back, and when you're doing a pool fill, the last thing you want to do is slowly put the water in. You want to put the water in fairly quickly for that surface. So the other thing that you'll often find is people will use carbon tanks, and those are very good for the organics, the tannins that may be there. They will also capture some of the metals, but they won't capture the metals like a resin tank would do, or like the polymer, see you later polymer will do. They have very, very limited ability to do that. So filter is always recommended, right? You can't go wrong filtering it. Depending upon how bad that water is, you need to filter appropriately. You need to treat that water as best you can. One of the questions that we often get is, well, customers will be on a well, their house will be on a well, and they don't want to fill their water through their house system because it's expensive running that treatment system that they have. And I would caution to say, well, you're going to spend a lot more money trying to get those metals and those organics out of your pool than you will if you just use the system that's on the house. It's usually has a chemical treatment, permanganate we call it, and that usually helps to again oxidize the materials, both the organics and the inorganics. That again makes it much easier to use. So again, test that water, make sure you know what's in it, and then filter it according to what the results tell you.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And so your fill fast filters are a little different than the pre-filters that you mentioned that are like the cartridges in the cartridge filter. You want to go over why yours are a little bit different than those?
Yeah, we actually do a two-stage filtration system and actually a four-stage filtration system, depending upon the water. And again, that's why you want to test your water. So what we've done is we've taken the polymer that is in the bag, the See You Later product, and we've actually sealed it between two separate layers of a regular filter material. And what that does is that'll take out any kind of dissolved metals that are in that water. We then partner that with a pleated carbon filter that's a high flow carbon filter that allows you to use carbon, which is a very good material to take out organic any kind of contaminants that are in there. The other thing that it will do is it'll filter down to about 10 or so micron particle size. So we offer a two-sum system, which is the pleated carbon filter along with our Fill Fast See You Later filter, and what that does is that'll get you down to about 10 or so microns. Now, depending upon what you have in your water, if you have tannins and humic acid, you may still get a kind of a orange color through your water at that point in time. So then we offer two more stages, which are basically carbon block filters, which follow these first two filters, and they are a 5 or so micron filter. Again, it's a range, so it's between 5 and 10 micron. And then the final polishing filter is a 0.5 micron filter that actually takes just about everything out of the water. So depending upon what you have, we have a filter system, either a 2-sum system or a 4-sum system, that can give you really good water going into that pool.
And I think that's something that, again, is often overlooked when you're starting up a pool, is to fill water and what's going into the water. And I think people don't even know that they're on well water in a lot of areas. They have this image of well water being, not as common, but even my city uses a lot of well water along with other water sources from outside the area. And so you may have well water without even knowing you have well water.
Right, exactly. We are here in Florida. It's well water. It's Everglades, but it's coming out of the ground. So, but it's treated at our facilities. before it gets to the tap. And if it goes through the older kind of facility, it comes out kind of brown because it's got some tannins in it. It's kind of ugly. It looks like it's used water when it sits, in the glass. But if it goes through the newer, modern kind of treatment facility where they use ultrafiltration, it comes out crystal clear. So depending upon where you live in the city, you have kind of better water than others. But it's all basically well water.
I think the easiest way to see their products and to, of course, get in contact with them and to take their STAR certified program is to go to the See You Later website, which is seeyoulater.com. That's CULAOTR. And over there, you're going to find all the information you're going to need to further your knowledge on metal stain identification and metal stain removal. And if you're looking for other podcasts that I've recorded, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. Here, you just click on the podcast icon on the banner, and there'll be 1,500 episodes that you can listen to at your leisure. And if you're interested in the coaching program, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Real quick, if you're not using pool service software, try Skimmer free for 30 days at getskimmer.com/poolguy. Again, that's getskimmer.com/poolguy. Skimmer, everything you need to run your pool service business all in one app.